วัสดีค่ะ Welcome back for afternoon session of Day 1 LogiMAT Intelligence Warehouse 2023 at Exhibition Hall 5 at Orange Stage. I would like to start for the first session, or the first panel discussion with the topic is LogiMAT talks on AI in Intralogistics. Of course, today we have two panelists and one more distinguished moderator. Would like to present for this topic, LogiMAT talks on AI on Intralogistics. First, panelists, I would like to welcome and big applause Professor Dr. Johannes Fottner on the stage. Welcome. สวัสดีค่ะ And the second panelist, ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause and welcome Professor Dr. Norman Höltz, please. And of course, our beloved moderator, everyone, give a big round of applause and welcome Mr. Yan on the stage. Please welcome Mr. Yan. And of course, one now, if you're available, and Mr. Yan, I will give you a floor for this session for LogiMAT talks on AI in Intralogistics, please.
Okay, somebody up and come back up. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, nice to have you here today. Nice to have you here after lunchtime. It's always a difficult time for us. So that's why we are thinking about to find a really special topic today to discuss the next, let me say, 40-45 minutes. Also depends on you, not only on us. The topic will be, as you have read, artificial intelligence. This is a buzzword. Is this a new chance for everybody? Is this overdone? What it means to us, what it means to the employees, what it means to people who run a warehouse, what it means to the society itself. We will discuss within the next 40-45 minutes, and as I don't have to do this alone, I have two experts on this topic here. First of all, on my very left side, Professor Johannes Fottner from the Technical University of Munich. He's not only an expert in artificial intelligence, he's an expert in intralogistic field. I think since 8 years professor, and before 7 years professor, and before he was working in some quite well-known company, Mias, for example, was mentioned later to Johannes, etc. So he's a really expert in the field of intralogistics. So Johannes, nice to have you here today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
And in the white middle, Professor Norman Höltz from Berlin, from the University of Berlin. He is also an expert in the intralogistic field, also working on things like digital twins and all this stuff, which also belongs to the artificial intelligence somehow. And maybe we can discuss this also later. Norman, just say hello, and nice to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Artificial intelligence, I just said, it's a buzzword. It just came up the last months, the last years. I do know that word since 30 years, Johannes Fottner. Is this really new, and what does it mean to us?
No, actually, there was already a real big hype of artificial intelligence in the 90s, which was stopped at that time. But it was not only technological reasons. It was that it was a little bit too much used as a buzzword. And it came up again, I wouldn't even say through the last months, but the last decade was a very powerful time of further development of artificial intelligence. So if you would ask me as a starter, is it only a buzzword? My answer would be no. It's something really important today.
But also a buzzword, you say. Okay, do you agree, Norman?
If you look back a little bit in the history of artificial intelligence, machine learning, because all of these terms tend to mix up a little bit, actually it goes further back. 1950s, there was some first work around artificial intelligence, and as Johannes mentioned it was in research and labs and in science environments, and rather not in the industry. But then there was just not enough use cases, was not enough computing power in those days. So this is why it lost a little bit of its appearance, if you want to call it like that. And from the 80s, you found that machine learning came into the equations. They really talked about input layers, output data, output layers, and everything in between. And only, as Johannes mentioned, in the last kind of 10 years, when the computing power really took over or enabled kind of the processing of big sets of data, this is where then deep learning was all of a sudden possible and enabled kind of the artificial intelligence that we see nowadays.
Thank you so much. I just learned that it's not easy to have a concrete definition on that artificial intelligence, or do we?
probably Norman is the better expert for the definition. For me, he said one thing which was really important, that at least in the German language, what we understand with intelligence is something completely different, because intelligence, our understanding in some cases, is very much linked to emotional, creative, a lot of different things. The deep learning, machine learning, is probably what we see today, and we are in a process to get more into the direction of at least the English intelligence, and away from learning in really doing decision making. But as well, I would say there is probably a good definition, but I would ask Norman if he has a good one. I really don't have a good definition. It's deep learning, it's machine learning, it's pattern recognition, it's working based on a set of data and trying to find some relations in there in a quite fast way.
The initial idea of intelligence and artificial intelligence was actually that picture you have a computer and you have a human being separated by a wall. So, and the idea was, if a human being can communicate with a computer and the human being can't figure out that he or she is talking to a computer, that in those days was considered to be intelligent. The challenge with that is that these models were trained in a particular way to execute that kind of chat simulation. Yeah, so it's not really intelligent, but it was rather trained into that direction. And this is what we saw with the first kind of artificial intelligence models as well. They were designed to do something specific. But the kind of intelligence that we talk about and that we also want to come to later is kind of this super intelligence that can do everything and anything. Yeah. But I don't want to provide a very concrete definition because it doesn't really help in today's case, but let's rather deep dive into use cases later.
Okay, so we learned there's not a real definition. We learned we have to explain this. You have to explain this, and if you talk about this topic, you always have to talk about chances. You have to talk about dangers. Is this 50-50?
If I would start, I would say no, it's not 50-50. But the bad thing is, the highest risk, you might say, is not to use it. And the highest risk is to bring up expectations that are not possible to be fulfilled. So because that killed already a lot of technologies so far. From the moment, I can say we already have a lot of applications in the background of many, many products. Sometimes artificial intelligence is used before you even bring the product to the customer. So you train your product in doing something, then you bring it to the customer and it stops learning. I do believe in the future it will continue learning. It will still have an optimization process. But there are several applications. We can talk much more in detail about that. The risk for human beings is rather low. The chances we have are really, really high. But in some cases, it's a danger to promise too much.
Okay, there's one danger. The other one, the fear which might occur, I don't know here, but if we look at Europe, is the employee might be concerned to be substituted by the artificial intelligence. Is this really a danger or not?
Well, I would say there is kind of a common, I don't want to say understanding, but opinion about that employees who ignore and do not want to learn to engage with these new kinds of technologies are certainly going to lag behind and will most likely be not replaced by machines, but by other human beings who are capable and very fit in using and utilizing these tool sets. So that is one kind of common understanding what I see out there. The other aspect I want to mention is that I'm coming from a demographic angle. So if we look into recent publications, projections, demographics in worldwide in countries 2,100, I know it's still 75 years to go about, or approximately. So if we look into the German population, it's going to decrease significantly. If we look into, for example, China, it's estimated that's going to halve. If we look into Thailand, just checked it this morning, at the moment we are talking 66 million people, in 2146, so also decreased by 20 million people. So that means you have, and that's what we're experiencing in Europe very strongly, and not just there, we have a shortage of skilled labor. So, and companies are forced to replace that somehow. So, and this is where artificial intelligence, obviously in combination with robotics, automation, etc., can offer a great chance for companies to actually move forward and to continue to grow and to improve their efficiency.
And how to take the employees with you, how to convince them. This might be the next problem on that. There's also not a golden rule, yeah?
There is no golden rule, but being honest is sometimes a good solution. And if we think about what is the major fear, it's to be controlled by computers. Very honestly speaking, we are controlled already by computers. So if we have an order picking process, the list what to pick and in which sequence to pick and in which way I should walk is already done by the computer. There are a lot of decisions done by a computer, and so far they were really, really helpful. And being open, being clear that there is not a new God we have to pray to, but there is something which is a helpful technology supporting human beings in being more efficient, more successful, and sometimes even more reliable, is probably the best way to think about it.
So it will be not be a substitute, it might be or should be an assistant, yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, there's some interesting statistics that companies understand that they need to support and empower employees by technology. But according to some recent findings, only 22% of the companies are actually admitting that they are ready to do so. That means we have kind of about 80% of companies who are not ready yet to support their employees. And the whole aspect of digital transformation always requires three things. First of all, you have to have the right digital talent. That means bringing people up to speed, to understand, to work with the technologies, to really leverage also what is out there. Point number two, you gotta have to build business models and processes that enable digital transformation. And last not least, and this is what I see a lot, is companies invest in a lot of different technologies, but it is the overall landscape, the working together of systems, hardware, software, that actually has to make sense and tie together with the digital talent as well as the processes and business model.
Yeah, we are looking very general on this topic, but also Johannes already said we should go a little bit more deeper in the details. And if we come to the intralogistics field, can we define maybe from the incoming goods to the outcoming goods where artificial intelligence will really be a good assistant system?
We could, and we can do it, but basically you can answer as a first answer everywhere in these processes. The question is, how will we use that technology? And I think the first idea in my research to use artificial intelligence is we are talking a lot about automation, and now with Industry 4.0 we go from automation to autonomization. So decision making by machines. And for doing decisions you first have to perceive the environment. And if we talk about perception, it's the first step. We learned our machines to get a good overview about the environment by having perception instead of just having sensors and using something. That's the first step. There are several ways in the whole process line where you can use it. You can do it if you do decentralized decisions about how to go around an obstacle. You can, and that was even possible before AI came up, but I would say it gives us much more flexibility. And I would always like to think in the opposite way. We do not do digitalization to have digitalization in our companies. We will not use artificial intelligence to use artificial intelligence. What we actually do, and I will talk about that tomorrow in my short presentation, is we want to increase our efficiency, our quality, our performance somehow, our productivity. But efficiency is a very important one, and we can see with these applications of artificial intelligence, we get technology in places where they do something independently in their certain ranges, and they do it in a very reliable way already.
But it sounds a little bit also decision-making machines. If there one day the day comes, the machine make a decision we don't want.
Well, you can see it like that. I'm going to give you a very practical example. What is Amazon doing, for example? Yeah. So they understand really your preferences. They look at your order history. They look at what you're clicking at, how much time you spend on certain pages, on certain products, etc. And Amazon wants to go all the way through to saying, before you even hit the order button, we already in the background prepared that product for you, so that by the time you're pressing that order button, we don't just have to get it out of the fulfillment center, but it's almost done and ready for shipping. This is what artificial intelligence at the end of the day enables. And also what Johannes mentioned already before we come to the intralogistics side, what Oracle implemented many years ago, and that was before ChatGPT, etc., became a hype, is they included artificial intelligence into their forecasting models to say, we, for example, scan all kinds of social media channels, and we enable you as a customer, not the end consumer, but the user of the Oracle system, to predict how well will your new product be perceived in the market. So all of these are applications that are years old. This is nothing new. So, and we will talk about generative AI, ChatGPT in a bit as well, and that is how that is going to change. But in general, fully agree to Johannes, you can find it everywhere in intralogistics.
You can find it and you don't know it already. It's just there, yeah?
And maybe back to your question, it might make decisions we don't like. That's happening today with something called management as well. So sometimes decisions made by some control unit are not the ones I would like to have. But we just did a research project which was really, really interesting, because we tried, have some sort like research in an institute called Institute for Ethics in Artificial Intelligence. And it was interesting to find out, so far we always think it's artificial intelligence against human beings, and that's not the case. Artificial intelligence is not bad and not nice, it's just artificial intelligence. And you can use it as well for doing decisions based on the preference of people. So human beings can also have a big advantage by using that. The question is, which kind of decisions are we doing today? And yeah, the prediction of something, to have a forecast for the future, I personally dream about that even more in the future, because I normally say if you want to revolutionize logistics, you need two inventions. The first one is, we know that from Star Trek, that's the beaming of goods, so transport without any time delay. But you just can beam what is already there. So they were not able to beam something which was not existing yet. So we need a good prediction, we need a crystal ball which tells us in detail what will go on. And there I strongly believe, especially not just based on big data, but on a fast decision process in a changing environment like 2020. The world changed completely. You couldn't have a look to the year 1980 because there was no pandemic. So we will learn with artificial intelligence to make very, very fast decisions and relatively precise decisions in many cases. So yeah, it might not be nice for everyone, but it's a very good way to support our own decision making. And basically, in all the solutions we have today, it's more a left or right decision. It's how can I go around an obstacle, or how will I change my route? It's not so far something which will change the human life. But in the future, there might be even more responsibility and accountability. But it's still something where people will have to overrule from case to case and be able to overrule.
Yeah, so a machine doesn't do anything you have trained them before, yeah?
And there are mistakes. So we should be clear that the availability and the reliability of human beings is less than 100%. And the availability and reliability of machines is less than 100%. In many cases, the reliability of machines is higher than the reliability of human beings.
Yeah. Sometimes vice versa, actually. So that's why we have to find out a way where to use the artificial intelligence. Normally you just say ChatGPT, so it's one. This is a buzzword, isn't it? Or it's not a buzzword. Never mind. One ChatGPT, or how ChatGPT can be used in the warehousing. But is there possibility, and if how?
And I want to get away a little bit from the GPT or ChatGPT side and talk more about generative AI, which is all of a sudden what happened is that in the past, as Johannes mentioned it, we had AI systems embedded into existing hard and software. So, but human beings had very little interaction directly with the AI engine. So now with generative AI, there's all of a sudden a kind of a user interface. Where human beings can really, it doesn't matter in which position they are, they can interact with the engine and can, for example, get real-time reports out of systems that have not been pre-generated. So again, within a warehouse or an intralogistics environment, it can be utilized all the way from management through to whoever is working on the shop floor. So again, multiple application cases. So generative AI, the major difference is now is we have a user interface. So and companies, and I see it across the world, introducing their own GPTs now that are obviously fed with data sets belonging to that company. And all of a sudden you can leverage all of these data, because this is something that also changed over time. The initial models of AI were only able to work with structured data. So what does structured data means? It is really pre-structured, like an Excel spreadsheet, very nice columns, rows. But what the reality is, we have a lot of unstructured data that come after us every single day. Videos, photos, emails, messages, whatever it is. And engines have to be able to work through all of that. So now an employee can actually access all of that and make meaningful decisions. It can be for knowledge management, it can be for training, for education. Some people just use it to actually in real time build new shift plans. So all of these are application cases.
So talk about structured and unstructured data. You say you have a lot of unstructured data this time. Are the AI able to structure them, or should we do that?
No, we can't. Hell no. So the amount of data that we have to work through, we would have to work through every day. There's no way. And this is exactly where AI comes and plays its strength. It's computing power. So and just throw it all into the big pot and then put the right algorithm, train it with the right algorithms, and enable the machine to learn itself. This is also kind of the evolution phases that you have in artificial intelligence, where you had like supervised learning initially, and nowadays we go pretty much towards unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning. That's just from a technological perspective of the algorithm.
Nevertheless, Johannes, I would like to go or to stay a little bit in the warehousing process. We could mention 1,000 things, I think, which should be used, or where AI should be used. So maybe we can name 2 or 3 which maybe already used and nobody knows this, or which maybe on the horizon one day.
If nobody knows, I don't know either.
I
cannot answer if nobody knows, unfortunately. But several cases where we also use AI in our research, and also as you know, our research is in probably all cases done together with industrial companies, is for instance the very famous mixed case palletizing problem. We have a problem in optimized pallets, how we organize pallets. It even starts with packaging. How can I package something? So these are pretty simple use cases for AI, but very helpful use cases for AI, for optimization processes of daily operations, to support people in doing the right packaging for goods, which also optimizes the result, and by the way, even gives us a better and more sustainable result. We do something which improves. So I would say this continuous optimization of processes is something where we in general use, or will use in the future, a lot of AI, and we use already some of that. In the warehouse, it's all about where to locate something, how to position something, how to get there, to optimize the order picking process is something which is done by the ERP system since probably 20 years. But now we do it in even a much better way, because we have this online optimization by learning something from the past. And as you said, with the possibilities of unsupervised learning, we can train machines more and more. And you mentioned one thing which is really important. AI is not only used for the machine itself, it's also used for the communication between the machine and the human being. The machine is not the problem. Machine-machine communication is simply defined and perfectly well. But unfortunately, we as human beings, we do not have a USB port. We do not even have a wireless LAN access. So what we can do, we use this little tool we have all in our pockets. We can read data. And AI can help us in making it easier to talk to machines. And I really mean talk to machines. The kid in Karlsruhe defined 7-8 years ago this working with gestics. So you could give a sign to a machine and it was even in the moment reacting. And that's for me a very important thing, because people don't have to be afraid. It's even better. We are integrated into the world of Industry 4.0 by these tools. And we can communicate with machines in the future. We can do it in an intuitive, very simple way. And so far, we needed a keyboard or something for doing this communication.
So, as we said the whole time, AI is not new. So chaotic warehousing. This is yeah.
There are really plenty
Yeah.
of examples. And the easiest thing is always the mobile robotics, the picking robotics, where we couldn't
we
work
can see
without
this,
it.
yeah?
We have
Yeah.
to pick something. So we have to recognize it and we have to calculate what is the best pick for the grasping process. That's very simple examples, but sometimes you have to train it every day. I sometimes struggle a little bit if we have this Amazon picking challenge, that obviously what we do as a challenge is far away from real processes. We make it much more complicated than it should be. So maybe you in your private life, you put everything in just one box and then you search for something. But in a professional way, where the processes are working like a company, there should not be thousands of things in the same box and the machine is looking for that. But we are able to do that. We successfully have shown that it works well. Okay, the problem is sometimes the mechanical gripper. And there, back again, in the order picking process, we will still use AI, and as the manipulation, we will have the human being, because we are really good in doing that.
To just look at you, we also would like to discuss a little bit with you. Is there any question in the audience, guys? If we have 5 more minutes time, then maybe ask you. Maybe we continue with this. Once again.
If you don't have any questions, we will ask
Yeah,
you
that's
some
right.
questions.
Would you like another example, a real life example?
Yes,
Or
please.
maybe two more. The one that I mentioned in that introductory video that we recorded is a combination of artificial intelligence and robotics. So FedEx at the moment is testing it in the US to actually, in a very smart way, fill delivery trucks. Yeah. So taking all the constraints into account. Where it becomes even more interesting is if we look into the air cargo environment. You know, these loading containers and aircrafts based on the fuselage of the aircraft are very hard to pack. And this is why if you look into DHL hubs in Leipzig and all across the world, this packaging of these containers happens by hand, still nowadays. But DHL has a lot of research going on to automate that, and artificial intelligence in combination with robotics is going to bring some real advancements in these areas. And after having talked to lots of these DHL guys, they also feel like it is hard work, yeah. And if you want to do that your whole life, it's going to be exhausting. So rather support the workforce than making them do that work for another 40 years.
So we can even widen the topic a little bit. To Johannes say, you just described the automation process. Now we're going to the autonomy process. Is this a given rule, a given way? Come from here to this to this. So the automation. I remember everybody was scared. Now I will be replaced by the machine. Now we look for the people all over the world. What happened with the autonomous process?
I always have to be careful, because that actually some of my colleagues will tell you, and professors are smart, not necessarily intelligent, but they are smart, and they sometimes say that if you will not use new technology in the next 2 years, your business will go away. If you have a look to history, we will find out there was the first industrial revolution, and there were still some companies without a steam engine. And there were still some companies after Henry Ford and not using electricity and not using mass production. And after Industry 3.0, there were still companies not using automation. So actually, today we have companies working according to Industry 0.0, 0.0, 1.0, and so on and so on. So the good news is we have technologies for every single purpose. We have the right degree of automation, and that allows us to go into different solutions for different companies. So if we talk about autonomization, that can be very helpful. If you would have a mass production process, everything is working accordingly to the process all day long. It's no need to do that because automation is perfectly well working. But if you have exceptions from a process, if you have sometimes even errors, mistakes, failures, then it's very helpful if the system can react on that. So the first idea of working in a decentralized way was not just to be more efficient, but to be more efficient in exception handling. If something happens which is not planned in the process, should we stop all processes and just working according to the exceptions in the future? No, it's much more efficient to work according to the processes. But autonomous thinking helps you to get out of a situation. So in case you want to understand what means decentralized thinking, if an accident is in front of your car, then we will start to communicate with the other cars, forget all the traffic rules and go around this obstacle. That's very successful. That's decentralized organization.
And we already do, if we have the chance, and the machine has to learn this, learned by us, Norbert.
In addition to that, maybe you ask for more very specific examples. Sorry that I'm going to go back because I still wanted to mention that. And you also initially mentioned the digital twin, yeah, which obviously the application of digital twins is going to grow. You need specific use cases, and we see it a lot in, for example, in wind parks out there, so in remote locations for all kinds of asset classes. But if we look into artificial intelligence and digital twin, what it allows us to talk really about, or to go into predictive maintenance. So, and I think in particular in the intralogistics space, we have a lot of assets that are moving to really have machines to tell you, hey, you gotta have to look after your assets better. Go and do some maintenance there or there or there, or we're going to reach the life cycle very soon. That is also a big win. So it's not just for the day-to-day operations, but actually to keep the whole machine running.
You agree, yeah?
And absolutely. I really like that very much because that's something where we learn something, where we can optimize. We use the results from data. We can predict life cycle times. Actually, what is the reason why we do that? To increase our efficiency. We want to use our machine as long as possible, and we want to be uninterrupted until a planned maintenance. Actually, that started, if I remember well, somewhere in the 80s when BMW started to have these little lights instead of the maintenance intervals. But that was just recognition of how many times I used full speed. Today, we can really observe and investigate the whole process and see how we were acting with the machine and can calculate what does that mean. Probably not 100% precisely, but with a much better prediction than so far. So I strongly believe this is one of the really good examples how to increase the efficiency and the productivity of our equipment much more. And again, it will also improve our sustainability, because we will not replace something just because there are another 7 weeks until the next maintenance. And I'm not sure if it will stay for this time.
And it sounds a little bit like this is the solution, the AE? Or is there something where you say, okay, please be careful? It sounds quite optimistic.
You know, I'm an engineer and he's also an engineer. And
Me too,
engineers should always say, please be careful, because we sometimes do things where we really don't know what will happen and we just try. Yeah. That's also a good idea, but we will never ever think about it, and we should be careful. And with AI, yes, you have to be careful which kind of responsibility and competence you give to the AI.
Exactly.
But as long as you are still having some sort of an additional instance which is checking what's going on, probably not with the speed. I always have a problem with the understanding. We say explainable AI. It should be explained to the human beings how the AI is making decisions. But the decisions shall be made much faster than the human being is following. So how could you explain something while it's already acting? So that's not working well. But to understand in which range the decisions will be. It's not something where we say now we stop completely or we go into the opposite direction. It's decision processes where we have to adjust something, where we change the direction maybe in a certain way. And there I strongly believe, yes, be careful, but use it, because it's in many, many cases better than the human being. If you talk about autonomous driving of vehicles in the traffic, I'm a bit careful with thinking everything should drive without a driver. But if you combine it, as we do today with assistance system in the first step, we have a very good result in improving the safety and the reliability. So obviously we use technology not to replace something where we are very good in, but we use it to support us in getting better.
And use this what's usable or what suits to your efforts you have to do, to your task you have to do. Yeah, Robin?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to embed it into your environment. And as Johannes mentioned it earlier, depending on also where you are, it makes no sense to ramp up from an Industry 1.0 kind of environment and now I want to become an Industry 5.0 kind of company. It makes no sense to enforce that. But again, you have to create the right processes around you, the right business models. You have to take your people with, and you need to really make an informed decision which technologies make sense for us. And I fully agree, AI is certainly an enabler, to become more productive, more efficient in your processes.
Yes, well, looking back in the audience, any question? There's a question. Do we have a mic? Otherwise, I go over there. No problem. Always good to move a little bit on a trade fair. Just say your name on the question.
Yeah, my name is Sachin Patil. I represent Mrs. Stuttgart, India. I have in fact two questions, two separate questions. One question is regarding, say, cyber attacks now. AI is driven by big data and of course it's susceptible to cyber attacks. So how do you see these threats? And probably what could be the solution also? Maybe it's a complex one, but maybe you have some answer. And the second question is, AI being at this point of time probably a little expensive to implement. Say companies like Amazon can do that, but what happens with the smaller companies in terms of technology and expertise? Probably they are not so keen to get into AI at this point of time.
I would start with a simple approach and then you can give the professional answers. I think that's the right direction. So to your first question about the big data and the risk, unfortunately there is even a lot of risk to have not true data if you have a lot of human beings working there. So we don't have a guarantee that data is correct. And unfortunately we have this wonderful source of information called the internet. And there is a lot, bullshit in the internet. So if you work with this data, we should not be surprised if something is going wrong. To your second question, and as I said, he will give you the much more professional answers. The second question, only Amazon can afford. No, that's the good news. There are several approaches that are already used even in very simple industries. And I was the managing director of a mid-sized company for 10 years. And my experience is it's not that innovation is just done by small companies, but it's as well done by small companies. Sometimes the processes are much easier to implement because it's not that complex environment with the very complex decision processes. As a not so serious answer, I would say there is a good chance to replace a lot of the middle management of a company by AI because they are really just doing some coordination work. I would not be sure that this is something which has a very good ROI pretty soon. So I do believe it's not something which is just possible for large companies.
So I will try to give a qualified answer to the second question first. Thank you for the question. There is an interesting statistics that 80% of AI projects fail before they go live. 30% of the projects even fail before POC. So what does that mean? In particular, if you're a small, medium enterprise, I would not try to embark on a project where I need significant resources in-house, but rather would partner with companies that already built the expertise. And in the logistics and intralogistics sphere, there's lots of small but very smart, very intelligent, knowledgeable players that really then tailor also solutions to your particular environment and your your development of where you stand as a company. So that's kind of the back to, are you industry 1.0 or 2.0? Where do you stand? And they really tailor solutions towards you, and will give you an informed decision, if you want to call it like that. And I think just from a cost perspective, it's also far more reasonable than, again, building an AI team or trying to build that knowledge in-house. So the other question in terms of threats, absolutely correct. We had that with digital twin, where all of a sudden we have a communication channel back to the twin, and if we kind of interfere in that communication channel, we can literally make the physical object do something that we didn't want to do it. So the same is with artificial intelligence, because these engines, these algorithms are learning. It's kind of, what kind of information are you feeding the systems? So that means if you have some kind of interference in the learning process, and the machines are kind of learning, I don't want to say the wrong stuff, but you can also talk about some bias. You want to bring the outcome into a certain direction. If you don't control that, then obviously the outcome will have a certain direction, a certain bias, a certain opinion, etc. And we saw that with ChatGPT very nicely. Yeah? So depending on which version you're going to use, that sometimes it's kind of really, I don't want to say nonsense, but ChatGPT also made up information, and when you ask them where did you get the information from, it even made up references that did not exist. Yeah, so this is why, and this is what, in particular, for example, OpenAI is really putting a lot of resources on to figure out how can we make that better, how can we control that? Because the challenge with AI is that no one knows how these machines are actually bringing information together. It's pretty much like our brain. Yeah. Also, no one really understands that, because it is very complex. And in AI engines, it is nothing else. So, bringing us back to data policy, for example, the EU would like to give every citizen the opportunity to say, if there's a decision made in your case, then you have to have transparency around how we came to that decision. So if you use now AI engines, no one can do that. There was a very nice example in the Netherlands, sorry, I'm deviating a little bit, where a public department responsible for social grants decided or implemented an AI engine. That engine made certain decisions. People came back, complained. And now the government department had to explain, why did you make that decision? But they couldn't. So they had to discontinue the system again. So there is still a lot of learning to be done.
But you said one thing which was absolutely true for almost every technology. You have to rethink your processes once you have a new technology. So if you try to start Industry 4.0 because say that's a great technology and you don't change your processes, it will fail. Actually, you made these numbers about how many projects fail. If you would have the same statistics about ERP systems, it would probably be very impressive. Still, we use a lot of ERP systems because we cannot live without them. But if you have the wrong data put in by your staff, because in the past they said, okay, I don't know the delivery time of this part, so I fill in 999 days. And you switch on an ERP system with or without AI, it will believe 999 days. So the whole project will be shifted by 999 days because this one part will take 999 days. So what I want to say is you have to be sure that your processes are really adjusted to the new technologies because they trust in what they get. If there is data, they just believe in that. They can compare it. They maybe say, oh, that might be exotic or that might be wrong. But basically, they just believe this is true, what's in your data. And since we invented the electric drive, it is a clear rule that whenever we have a new technology, we need new processes for that.
Yeah, so 7 minutes ago I got a sign, we still have 5 minutes, makes -2. That's my intelligence. So maybe a last sentences from you, Norman, and then from Johannes to this topic, to sum it up a little bit.
Yeah, just keep your eyes open, learn continuously, embrace the new technology, and really tailor it towards your specific requirements.
Johannes?
Find out your own way, but look for some help in finding your own way, because you will not know what you don't know, unfortunately. And I do believe we have a time, and this is basically what I will talk about tomorrow, where we can be really glad that we have different stages of solutions, of automation, of autonomization, of manual work, whatever. We can use everything. Nobody said We have to go into this one direction. And whoever is telling you, you have to do this, otherwise you will fail, don't believe in that. Find your own way, take the support from others, maybe from artificial intelligence, but find out your way by yourself.
Thank you very much. And I learned that there is another short question, or do we have time?
Sure.
Come on. Okay, yeah, we'll do a little bit.
Thank you. I'm Rachadet from the Thai Logistics Association. I'm implement ERP more than 30 years. I would like to share on the question. I think when we use the new technology, new automation, very important is how to change mindset of people in the organization. Sometimes he think automation is like a magic, do everything, can do everything. Sometimes some people not aggressive, conservative, try to use the new technology in the same process. Like you buy airplane, but the same existing is the chip. But he think airplane can do like the chip. What is seller in the airplane? No seller. So I think really important. Not only the technology, is the people, how to improve people mindset from the CEO to the operation. If the CEO think automation in the wrong concept, everything fail. That's, I think, people is very important. I have a keyword is the people, process, and platform. Platform is a technology, but people and process is very important. If not apply with the platform or technology, it's very hard to change that organization. Thank you.
Okay.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you very much.
Nothing
Comments from
to
you?
add, probably. I would just say one thing which I said at the early beginning, and you said it with your own words, don't promise too much. It's not magic, unfortunately. And we will still have to wait a little time until we invented magic. Because there are sometimes promises that you put in a robot somewhere, and just because of artificial intelligence, you push the button and it will find out by itself what it has to do. No, that's not working yet.
Okay, once again, thank you very much. The two professors will be here also the next days, I guess. If you have some more questions come up,
Excuse
just feel
me,
free.
Mr. Yan, one more question, please.
Okay, if you have time, for sure. We can continue until 4 o'clock, no problem.
Thank you for now is in technology in the warehouse. It's now in the what is about in the problem about logistic problem in the world in F4 in the information economies. So have about the logistic. Yes. Problem about logistic ที่ non can solve in now. Yes.
There was already one very good example from Norman about logistics in general. That was the Amazon example, how to act between the customers, the human beings, starting to think about, I want to buy something. Use that information. And basically what we can say today, I'm a professor for logistics engineering, and my focus is intralogistics, internal logistics, but it's absolutely impossible today to separate the internal logistics from the external logistics, because it's the so-called supply chain which I have. So these processes are always going far beyond just the internal processes and always caring about the logistics. And I can say the major problem of logistics, the major challenge of logistics in any case is prediction. It's forecasting in the best possible way. And that's where we will use technology.
Okay, thank you very much. As I say, if some more questions come up, the professors are here the next 1 or 2 days, whatever. Just feel free to catch them somewhere in the floor. I would like to say thank you very much, Kopka for your attention today. We are already 2 o'clock, so the next round starts here in a couple of minutes. Thank you too, that's your applause. And ladies and gentlemen, just to sum it up with my words, artificial intelligence is like a mobile. It's always a good servant, but never a good master. Thank you so much. Your applause.
Thank you so much.